Not every legend begins at number 1. Some are born in silence, in forgotten rounds, in draft lists no one ever cared to read. The draft promises futures, money, fame, glory, but it also decides who doesn't deserve a chance. Scouts look at bodies, at numbers, at speed, at raw athletic power. They measure height, they measure explosiveness, they measure everything you can see. But there's one thing the draft has never learned to measure: the fire inside, the hunger, the defiance born from being ignored. These players were not chosen to be legends. They were not born chosen. They became undeniable. Welcome to the legends nobody wanted. For teams, the draft is hope, the promise of finding a leader, a star, a piece capable of transforming a franchise. For players, the draft is not just an event. It is a life condensed into a number. Years of sweat and sacrifice, reduced to a pick on a screen. Nights without sleep, miles of running. Work nobody watched, everything placed on a single bet. For fans, the draft is illusion. It is believing that the name announced tonight will change the history of the team they love. That this pick, this kid no one really knows, may someday become a hero, a reference, a symbol. Because deep down, everyone dreams of witnessing the birth of a Hall of Famer. The athlete who will carve his name into memory, who decades later will still be applauded even when the lights are gone. But his legacy isn't. In the end, everyone hopes for the same thing. Players, teams, fans. All of them want this day to be the beginning of something greater than a season. The birth of a dynasty. An era that leaves a mark on sport, that repeats in trophies, that lives in banners hanging forever. But the draft does not always recognize those who could build it. It measures strength, vertical leap, speed, numbers. But it cannot measure wounded pride. It cannot measure hunger. It cannot measure resilience. When the draft chooses statistics, history chooses legends. June 19th, 1984. Madison Square Garden Felt Forum, New York City. A day when the world changed. Even if almost no one realized it in that moment, the cameras were pointed at the podium. The envelopes were sealed. 5 minutes to decide a future. One name to shape a franchise. One name to shape a life. Houston selected first, and they took Hakeem Olajuwon, a generational big man, dominant, inevitable, a Hall of Famer who proved them right with time. The number 1 pick was correct. No debate, no regret. But then came the second pick, a very different pick, a pick with a story of its own. That pick didn't originally belong to Portland, it belonged to Indiana. Traded away 3 years earlier, in 1981, in exchange for a player named Tom Owens. A move that seemed small back then, but became massive in hindsight. That trade handed Portland the second selection in one of the most loaded drafts the NBA has ever seen, which means Michael Jordan could have been a Pacer, but fate had other plans. The Trailblazers studied the board. They evaluated size, structure, positional need. In 1984, basketball still revolved around giants, and Portland already had Clyde Drexler on the perimeter, young, explosive, rising. Another shooting guard didn't fit the logic of that era, so they turned to the name that fit the mold: Sam Bowie. 7 feet tall, length, interior presence, a prototype at a time when prototypes ruled the league. Yes, there were warning signs. Bowie had suffered tibia fractures in college, 2 lost seasons, red flags the future would turn into headlines. But the medical reports were soft. The scouts looked away. Portland chose logic over vision. And with the second pick, the Blazers selected Sam Bowie. and let the future of basketball slip away. Chicago didn't trade up. They didn't bargain. They didn't steal anything. They simply waited for destiny to fall into their lap. With the third pick, the Chicago Bulls selected Michael Jordan. And that day, unknowingly, they rewrote the future of the franchise. Before him, Chicago wasn't an empire, not a destination, not a dynasty, just another team with history, but without legacy, not a single championship to their name. After him, 6 championships, 5 MVPs, 2 three-peats, an era, a global language, a sporting religion. The Bulls stopped belonging to Chicago and became property of the world. Jordan wasn't pick number 1. He wasn't pick number 2. He was the biggest mistake a draft ever made. And still, he became his heirness. June 8, 1988. Major League Baseball draft. In the NBA, a draft has 60 picks. In the NFL, 256. But in MLB, the draft is another universe. Dozens of rounds, thousands of names, an ocean of dreams that may never touch a field. In the first round, a player is a promise. In the second, an opportunity. By the 10th, a prayer. But in the 62nd round, there are no cameras, no headlines, only silence, dust, and the thin hope of the forgotten. And there, where scouts stop writing names, the Los Angeles Dodgers selected the 1,390th pick. They selected Mike Piazza. Piazza did not enter that draft as a future star. He wasn't in reports. He wasn't a top prospect. He wasn't, in the eyes of the system, a player worth projecting. His name was there for a more human reason. Tommy Lasorda, legendary Dodgers manager, 2-time World Series champion, a pillar of the franchise, and also godfather to Mike's younger brother. Lasorda and Vince Piazza, Mike's father, shared history, roots, family, long before baseball. Lasorda didn't recommend him as talent. He asked for him as a favor, as loyalty, as family. That was the first chapter, but the rest was written by Piazza himself. Obsessive training, a position change to catcher, a swing that began as doubt and became a weapon. He climbed without hype, without spotlight, without prophecy, until one day, quietly, the door opened. Debut, immediate impact, home runs that sounded like a message. I am not a favor, I am a problem. 1993, Rookie of the Year, 12 All-Star games, 427 home runs, the most by any catcher in history. And in 2016, the Hall of Fame. The last pick became immortal. The favor became legend. Mike Piazza was not discovered. He made himself impossible to ignore. June 8, 1965. Major League Baseball draft. The New York Mets made a selection that didn't stop the world. No headlines, no celebration, no prophecies. 12th round. Far from the spotlight, far from the chosen names. That's where Nolan Ryan appeared, a kid with an arm made of fire and a strike zone that couldn't contain it. He threw harder than anyone wanted to catch, but no one knew where the ball would land. Scouts saw potential, yes, but mostly they saw chaos. A storm in the shape of a pitcher, a weapon without aim, a future that could explode or disappear. And for years, Ryan was that. Raw lightning without a direction. Walks, wild pitches, speed without obedience. Until the trade that changed baseball history. December 10th, 1971. The Mets sent Nolan Ryan to the California Angels in exchange for Jim Fregosi. A move that time would turn into a scar. One of the most painful misjudgments the Mets have ever made. Because in California, the storm found rhythm, not through some magic adjustment, not through a mechanical reinvention. There is no documented miracle, No secret formula, only years, pain, repetition, a fastball that never got old, and finally learned where to land. And then baseball understood. The kid from the 12th round wasn't an experiment. He was a force. 7 no-hitters, 5,714 strikeouts. A mountain no one has climbed. 27 seasons. 3 different decades of hitters chasing a pitch that refused to slow down. Nolan Ryan was not immediate talent. He was enduring talent. He was not a perfect product. He was a prophecy carved over time. And in 1999, Cooperstown opened its doors. First ballot. Nearly unanimous. Not debated, accepted. His greatness was not fast, it was forever. They signed a question. They received an era. Nolan Ryan was misunderstood at the beginning. He was undeniable in the end. April 29, 1979. NFL Draft. The first quarterback taken was Jack Thompson at pick number 3. Then the Giants selected Phil Simms at 7. And Kansas City chose Steve Fuller at 23. 3 teams had already claimed their future. 3 quarterbacks before him. 3 chosen names, while 1 waited. Joe Montana wasn't first choice, or second, or third. He fell all the way to the 3rd round, to pick number 82, to the place where stars aren't drafted. Depth is. The San Francisco 49ers selected him quietly. No spotlight, no parade, no promise of a franchise. The starting quarterback was Steve DeBerg. Montana arrived as a backup, just another name in the roster. But Bill Walsh saw what others never measured. Not the strongest arm, not the most imposing athlete. Something else. Timing, precision, ice in the veins. And slowly, from the bench, Montana earned drives, minutes, trust, until the ball became his, not by assignment, but by right. Then came 1981, NFC Championship. 49ers versus Cowboys. 1 play, 1 breath left. Montana rolled right. The defense closed in. The stadium froze. And when no throw was possible, he threw anyway. High, impossible, eternal. Dwight Clark rose, fingertips scraping the sky, and came down with the ball. The catch. A pass that wasn't a play, it was a statement. And from that moment on, history leaned his way. Because before Montana, the 49ers had never lifted a single championship trophy. A team with history, but without glory. After him, 4 Super Bowls, 3 Super Bowl MVPs, 0 interceptions in championship games, final drives that felt written before they even happened. Joe Montana was not the prototype. He became the standard. 3 quarterbacks were drafted before him, but only 1 made clutch a religion. And in the year 2000, the Hall of Fame opened its doors. First ballot, undeniable. Not as the 82nd pick, but as the purest definition of greatness under pressure. For years, he was universally considered the greatest quarterback of all time. Football's Everest, the summit, the ceiling. Until one day, someone else arrived. Another late pick, another overlooked arm, another name that fell even further. The only man who could challenge Montana's throne. Because history had one last chapter, and it didn't begin in round 3. It began far below. His name will be the final act of this story. April 16th, 2000, NFL Draft. 7 rounds, more than 200 selections, and 1 quarterback from Michigan. Watching them pass, one after another. 6 quarterbacks were taken before him that day. 6 projected futures. 6 safe bets. While the clock kept moving, and his name never left the board. He wasn't a first-round pick, not a second, not even a third-rounder like Joe Montana. He was selected in the 6th round. He was picked 199, a number that looked like an ending and became a beginning. And the team that finally called his name was the New England Patriots. A franchise with history, yes, but with no glory, no rings, no dynasty. In more than 40 years of existence, they had never won a single Super Bowl. His name appeared only then, quiet, uncelebrated, unpromised. Brady arrived as the third quarterback, behind the established star, Drew Bledsoe. He didn't come to lead, he came to wait. But miracles don't announce themselves. An injury opens a door. Brady steps in and never steps out. What followed wasn't a career. It was a rewrite of the sport. 7 Super Bowls, 5 Super Bowl MVPs, impossible comebacks, historic finishes, 2 decades of dominance under pressure. The Patriots, who had never lifted a trophy, became a dynasty, an empire, a new era that changed football forever. Brady didn't just rewrite his story, he rewrote an entire franchise, and with it, the game itself. Montana was the standard. Brady built a higher mountain, not the fastest, not the strongest, not the chosen one, the impossible one. Pick 199 became the greatest player the draft never knew how to choose. Not every decision is made on the field. Some happen far from the crowd, in draft rooms, behind closed doors, in details no one paid attention to, until history gave them weight. This is the other side of the draft. The side broadcasts never tell. Portland didn't just pass on Jordan, they did it with confidence. Jack Ramsey, head coach at the time, later admitted that Jordan wasn't even a priority. The logic was simple. Drexler already played the same position. They needed size. They chose Bowie. And here's the crack in history. The pick used to draft Bowie originally belonged to the Indiana Pacers, traded away years earlier, almost forgotten. If that trade never happens, Michael Jordan could have been an Indiana Pacer. A move unnoticed then that would haunt basketball forever. Piazza wasn't a scouting jewel. He was a gesture of friendship. Tommy Lasorda, Dodgers legend, and godfather to Piazza's brother, asked for him as a favor. Very late. Pick 1,390. The lowest draft pick ever to reach the Hall of Fame. What began as loyalty became one of baseball's greatest stories. Sometimes talent is born where no one looks and shines where no one expects it. Before he became myth, Nolan Ryan signed for $50 and a dinner. He threw 100 miles per hour when baseball had no tools to measure it. Raw velocity, undefined power. His career didn't explode, it endured. He dominated at 20 and still dominated at 44. Ryan wasn't a spark. He was a slow-burning fire. Oliver Stone once revealed a secret. The name of Scarface's protagonist, Tony Montana, was a tribute to Joe Montana. Not coincidence, not accident. Stone wanted a name that sounded powerful, controlled, inevitable. Hollywood made Montana immortal on screen. Football made him immortal for real. Before ruling the NFL, Brady was also a baseball prospect. 2 dreams, 2 futures. He chose the unlikely path, the one nobody believed in. His combine photo says everything. Average body, ordinary frame, nothing intimidating. Scouts saw a shape. They missed the fire. He played until 45, won 7 Super Bowls, more than entire franchises. Brady wasn't perfect physique. He was perfect will. 5 names, 5 improbable destinies, 5 legends the draft couldn't measure. Because the draft counts numbers, height, weight, speed. But history is written with something deeper, with hunger, with pride, with resilience, with the need to prove everyone else was wrong. And now that you know these stories, you may never watch a draft the same way again. Because we're not talking about selections, we're talking about destiny. About names that weren't chosen first, but chose to change everything anyway. About Michael Jordan, not the top pick, but the eternal standard. About Piazza, born from a favor, reborn as an impossible legend. About Ryan, signed for $50 and worth an entire era. About Montana, who inspired Hollywood. And Brady, who climbed even higher. 5 stories that are not just sports. They are decisions. They are gambles. They are mistakes that became miracles. If this episode surprised you, leave a like, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves the stories the world almost forgot. Because this is not just a sports channel. This is a channel about decisions that change the world. A place where the overlooked become unforgettable. Where the unchosen become undeniable. Where legends are born from doubt. Like the story of a team that didn't compete against anyone. They dominated. A team that turned a jersey into myth. Victory into spectacle. Sport into empire. A team that isn't remembered. It's worshipped. First, the unmatched, the unrepeatable. But also a team with a side almost nobody knows. We'll talk about decisions, about tension, about egos, about uncomfortable absences, about why Isaiah Thomas was left out, about why one college kid mattered more than 100 professionals. Not just greatness, the truth behind it. See you in the next episode. This is USS.Network. Untold Sports Stories.